Imagine two people having a conversation. They understand each other perfectly, laugh at the same jokes, watch the same movies, and share nearly identical grammar. But show them each other's writing, and suddenly, it's as if they're looking at a foreign language. This is the strange reality of Hindi and Urdu, two names for what linguists recognize as essentially one language, torn apart by politics, religion, and one of history's bloodiest partitions. Today, over 800 million people speak these two variants of the same tongue, yet the divide between them reflects one of the world's most dangerous geopolitical rifts. In this video, we'll explore how a language became a battleground and how colonialism, nationalism, and trauma transformed mutual intelligibility into symbols of irreconcilable difference. Because this is not just a story about language, it's about how nations manufacture identity, borders, and belonging. Let's start with a fact that surprises most people. Hindi and Urdu are linguistically identical where it matters most. Computational studies reveal approximately 94% grammatical similarity. Both languages use the exact same sentence structure: subject, object, verb, word order. The same postpositions, basically the opposite of prepositions in English. Identical verb conjugation patterns. Matching systems of gender, case, and tense. If you removed the scripts and formal vocabulary, even trained linguists would struggle to tell them apart. Both evolved from Khari Boli, a dialect spoken around Delhi during the 12th to 14th centuries. For hundreds of years, this shared ancestor served as North India's lingua franca under both the Delhi Sultanate and Mughal Empire, when it was simply called Hindavi or Hindustani. So if they're essentially the same language, why does the world treat them as completely separate? To answer that, we need to look at where they actually differ. Where Hindi and Urdu diverge is vocabulary, and even here the story is more nuanced than most realize. In everyday colloquial speech, the two languages share approximately 75 to 80% of their words. This enables spontaneous mutual comprehension in markets, homes, and casual settings. When ordinary people talk about food, family, weather, or daily life, they're speaking what's essentially the same language. But here's where politics enters the picture. As you move from street-level conversation to formal registers, the divergence accelerates dramatically. School mathematics terminology, just 8% shared vocabulary. This isn't linguistic evolution, it's deliberate elite choice. Hindi standardizers drew technical terms from Sanskrit, the ancient language of Hindu religious texts. Meanwhile, Urdu's literary establishment imported Persian and Arabic terminology. The result is what linguists call diglossia. Two registers of the same language operating simultaneously, a shared vernacular called Hindustani, and divergent literary standards labeled Hindi and Urdu. It's like having two different formal wardrobes while wearing the same casual clothes at home. So if the grammar is identical and everyday vocabulary overlaps substantially, what maintains the illusion of two separate languages? The answer is orthography, the scripts themselves. Hindi uses Devanagari. It isn't an alphabet like English. It's what linguists call an abugida, where consonants carry built-in vowel sounds. It's derived from ancient Brahmic scripts and written left to right. Urdu employs nastaliq, a cursive variant of the Perso-Arabic script, written right to left. A person literate only in Devanagari cannot read a single word of Urdu text and vice versa. Yet if those same words were spoken aloud, they'd understand each other perfectly. This orthographic divide creates practical barriers with profound psychological effects. Educational materials remain segregated. Digital input mechanisms are complex. Government forms, street signs, books, and newspapers, all separated by this visual barrier. Yet studies confirm that speakers of colloquial Hindi and Urdu achieve mutual understanding in approximately 75 to 80% of everyday spoken interactions. The script difference is real, but it's a political border drawn through a linguistic continuum. Now here's where the story stops being linguistic and starts being political. To understand how one language became two, we need to travel back to medieval North India. The linguistic prehistory begins with Khari Boli crystallizing into what contemporaries called Hindavi during the 12th to 14th centuries. The polyglot poet Amir Khusrau, a figure in the Sufi tradition, a mystical branch of Islam, served 5 Delhi sultans. He used this emerging vernacular, distinguishing it from Persian court language and Sanskrit liturgical texts. Under the Mughal Empire from 1526 onward, courtly culture fostered a hybrid register called rekta. It mixed Kari Boli's grammatical structure with Persian vocabulary and literary conventions. Poets like Mir Taqi Mir and Mirza Ghalib perfected the ghazal, a poetic form centered on love, longing, and loss, in what became known as Urdu, meaning language of the exalted court in Persian. But here's the crucial point: the spoken vernacular remained unified. Court poets wrote in Persianized rekta. Hindu devotional poets composed in Sanskritized registers, but common people spoke Hindustani, a flexible continuum that accommodated both influences depending on context and community. For centuries, this worked. The language was a bridge, not a wall. So what changed? The British East India Company's Fort William College, established in 1800, systematized Urdu as a public literary language. Simultaneously, it enabled Hindu scholars to codify a Sanskritized variant using Devanagari. These parallel standardization processes created infrastructure for eventual political division. The transformation into political controversy crystallized in 1867. A petition from Banaras, the Hindu religious center, demanded that courts replace Urdu with Hindi in Devanagari script. The context was explosive. The British had replaced Persian with Urdu as North India's administrative standard in 1837. Hindu revivalist movements now framed this as Muslim cultural domination. Babu Shiva Prasad, a Hindu intellectual and early language activist, authored an 1868 memorandum articulating arguments that became standard Hindu nationalist rhetoric. Nastaliq script was technically difficult, historically imposed by Muslim rulers. Alien to India's heritage, Muslim organizations defended Urdu, seeing existential threat to their cultural position. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, a Muslim reformer who had previously advocated Hindu-Muslim unity, underwent an ideological transformation. He declared that Hindus and Muslims could never become one nation. What had been linguistic variation within a shared vernacular was now transmuted into the communal question that would tear the subcontinent apart. A debate about court documents had become a proxy war for religious identity itself. Up to this point, nothing required separation. Partition changed that. The 1947 partition created 2 nation-states explicitly defined by religious identity, with language serving as cultural marker. Pakistan's founder, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, declared in 1948 that Urdu would be Pakistan's sole state language. This despite only 8% of Pakistanis speaking it natively. He justified this by arguing Urdu symbolized Muslim unity. But the Bengali-speaking majority in East Pakistan violently disagreed. The Bengali language movement culminated on February 21, 1952, when police fired on protesters in Dhaka. Students demanding Bengali recognition were killed, a date now commemorated as International Mother Language Day. These tensions contributed to East Pakistan's 1971 secession as Bangladesh in a civil war that killed up to 3 million people. Meanwhile, India's 1950 constitution designated Hindi in Devanagari as the official union language. Urdu received only scheduled language status, constitutional protection. Yes, but with unmistakable association as a Muslim minority language. India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, personally considered Urdu his mother tongue. He preserved its constitutional status but promoted Sanskritized Hindi for bureaucratic purposes. 7 decades later, the effects are entrenched. Hindi speakers in India rarely engage with Urdu. Urdu speakers in Pakistan lack connection to Hindi literary traditions. The linguistic common ground that existed in 1900 has been substantially obscured by institutional separation. Today, Hindi commands approximately 609 million total speakers globally, making it the world's third most spoken language. Urdu has 232 million speakers. But here's a paradox that reveals everything about this divide. India actually has nearly 4 times more Urdu speakers than Pakistan. 71 million versus 18 million native speakers. Despite Urdu being Pakistan's national language. The post-partition decades entrenched equations that defy linguistic reality. Hindi with Hindu nationalism. Urdu with Muslim identity. In India, Hindu nationalist politics since the 1980s has intensified Hindi imposition pressures. Campaigns explicitly attack Bollywood for being too Urdu-influenced. In Pakistan, Urdu became increasingly Islamic in vocabulary after partition eliminated Hindu scholarly participation. Identity politics transformed language choice into a signal of communal loyalty. Muslims in India who speak Urdu face assumptions about Pakistan's sympathies. Hindus who appreciate Urdu poetry risk accusations of minority appeasement. What was once shared cultural continuum has become a minefield where linguistic choices carry geopolitical implications. Ironically, India's Bollywood film industry historically maintained the most significant Hindustani space. During the golden age of the 1950s through 1970s, most screenwriters wrote in Urdu, including the legendary duo Salim Javed. Classic stars spoke a Hindustani leaning toward Urdu, peppered with Persian vocabulary. By the 1970s, observers noted that a substantial majority of films were made in Urdu, yet marketed as Hindi cinema. But the 1990s brought linguistic shift. Old Urdu screenwriters were replaced by those writing in Hindi or English. Stars began speaking more Sanskritized Hindi or Hinglish, Hindi-English code switching. Industry insiders increasingly acknowledge that Hindustani cinema more accurately describes the reality. Film songs still draw heavily on Urdu's tradition of love poetry. But film scholars note that commercial Hindi cinema has forsaken the florid Urdu that was once its hallmark, affected by aggressive state policies promoting Sanskritized Hindi. Yet Bollywood remains geopolitically significant because films circulate in both countries, providing rare shared cultural space. The fact that audiences in India and Pakistan still comprehend Bollywood's Hindustani exposed the artificiality of the political divide. The digital revolution presents both challenges and opportunities. Input mechanisms for both scripts remain complex on smartphones. Hindi requires fitting 12 vowels plus 36 consonants onto keyboards. Urdu's connected cursive nastaliq presents unique rendering difficulties, yet Unicode standardization and tools like Google's Indic keyboard provide infrastructure. Social media has become a laboratory for linguistic evolution. Urban youth code switch between Hindi, Urdu, and English in what's emerging as digitally native Hindustani infused with English. A potential third way beyond official Hindi or Urdu. Diaspora communities in North America, Europe, and the Gulf present complex dynamics. First-generation immigrants maintain fluency. Second-generation develop receptive bilingualism. Third-generation connections often attenuate to symbolic identity markers. Yet diaspora spaces also offer bridge-building opportunities absent in South Asia. Community organizations host Urdu poetry gatherings and Hindi poetry festivals, attracting audiences across national and religious lines. The physical and emotional distance from India-Pakistan geopolitics enables diaspora members to appreciate linguistic unity more easily than those for whom Hindi-Urdu difference carries daily political stakes. To understand just how exceptional the Hindi-Urdu divide is, consider similar cases where politics split mutually intelligible languages. Serbian and Croatian share the closest parallel. High mutual intelligibility with orthographic barriers. Serbian uses Cyrillic, Croatian uses Latin, just like Hindi's Devanagari and Urdu's Nastaliq. The breakup of Yugoslavia in the 1990s fragmented one language into 4 standards, yet critical differences emerge. The religious dimension operates less intensely than the Hindu-Muslim divide. The split is more recent, and crucially, they never experienced anything approaching the scale and trauma of partition, which killed up to 2 million people and displaced 20 million. Czech and Slovak offer another instructive case. Approximately 82% mutual intelligibility, same Latin script eliminating the orthographic barrier that plagues Hindi-Urdu. Their 1993 separation, the peaceful split of Czechoslovakia, sometimes called the Velvet Divorce, proceeded without violence. Still, the endurance of colloquial Hindustani tells a story of resilience. Everyday people continue speaking a Hindustani their political leaders refuse to acknowledge. Films and songs maintain what official discourse denies. The Hindi-Urdu split stands as a cautionary tale about how intelligible speech can be weaponized, how shared heritage can be forgotten when politically convenient, how script differences can obscure genuinely shared grammar and vocabulary. But unlike other divided languages, Hindi-Urdu carries the unique burden of partition trauma and ongoing conflict. Yet it also reveals possibility. That artificial elite boundaries can coexist with grassroots linguistic unity. That the next generation might bridge what partition politics tore apart. The challenge is holding these tensions simultaneously, acknowledging real consequences while recognizing their constructed nature, respecting political identities while remembering syncretic origins. The Hindi-Urdu story is unfinished, its future dependent on choices yet to be made by 800 million speakers. Whether this shared language becomes a bridge or a border may depend less on grammar and more on memory.